Good evening, everybody. I wanted to take just a few minutes and welcome you all to my continued story workshop. It's been a little bit since I posted anything about the workshop, but it has expanded a little bit. It's in a bit of disarray. Got it expanded and really haven't done too much since then. Been real busy with work and life, and just like everybody else. Did get a compressor, and now I can build some cool things. I got a brad nailer, so I can make some better picture frames and whatnot. But if you guys have been paying attention to any of the posts, the most recent thing I've done just last night was this. These coasters, these epoxy resin coasters, which are sitting right here. Now, if you saw my post earlier, we were a little impatient to wait for the 72 hours, and we did pop one out. So I wanted to make sure to video this so that you can see a little bit better than what the pictures will show. As I was trying to take pictures, I found that it was very hard because of, as you can see, the light glaring off of it, how shiny and how much reflection comes off the surface of this. And there is still a little bit of smoothing over that I'll have to do around the edges. And I think there's a way that, at least on the sides here, that I can kind of buff that out and get it as shiny as the top. Hopefully it'll get rid of most of the yellow tint. A lot of the research that I've done, aka YouTube videos, a lot of them talk about that a lot of the epoxy resin mixes, even though they might say that they're clear, they end up with a yellow tint. But for the purposes of this, I think it'll be okay. You can actually see a little bit of the actual rock there. One thing I wanted to point out that is really awesome about this is that if you can see this kind of brownish glob there, that is actually a piece of beach glass that we found. And it's just so wild looking inside the epoxy. It's pretty neat. I like. It's hard to show. Maybe, yeah, right there. It almost looks like a little bubble tornado coming up. Once again, the bubbles aren't ideal, but I think for the purposes of what we want out of this, to give it that shallow beach, shallow lake water right by a beach look, I think it'll be okay. So there were some questions about what kind of products we used and what safety precautions and whatnot. So basically, what we ended up doing was we got this Easy Cast clear casting epoxy from Hobby Lobby. 16 fluid ounces. It comes in these, it's a two-part epoxy. You got your resin and your hardener. I think it was around $20 or so. So you need that, of course, and then whatever you're gonna have inside. What we found in the research that I did, silicone rubber molds work the best. You don't have to use a what's this stuff called? A mold release. But if you had another material that you wanted to do your epoxy resin mold as, probably be best to use. There we go. Some sort of mold release. We just got the. I think it's the same. Yeah, it's the same brand because it was right there. But in as you saw when I pop this out. It was a little bit harder getting it out the first time, but I mean, it comes out, and as you can see from the edges, I mean, it's just smooth as smooth can be. So some of the things you'll have to keep in mind if you choose to do this, and I know Mary, if you watch this, I know you were the one that asked, and you had said that you might get into this as well. Definitely need some wax paper. You see, I got my work table here coated with a layer of wax paper. And then once we got this all poured and everything, I just use that to keep any dust or bugs or whatever from getting on top of it. And then you definitely want to wear some gloves. Now, some videos I've watched, because I've watched a fair share of videos on epoxy resins, you want to make sure, and a lot of them were saying use the nitrile gloves, nitrile. Don't use latex. I don't know why, but I had these and I use these for other things, so it just it worked out. You'll definitely need some measured cups. We just got these. We got 2 of these at the dollar store. First time doing it, we'll probably end up just throwing those away. I mean, I would like to get into this a little bit more, but you know, first run, this was kind of the test to see how everything went. We got a bunch of what are these called? Popsicle sticks, yeah. Bunch of those, because you'll need those for the mixing, because you got your 2 parts. Now when we Cindy helped me with this, but when we did do all the mixing and stuff, we did wear dust masks. In the instructions, it actually, it doesn't even say to you wear gloves or dust masks, but all the videos I saw, they were wearing gloves, of course, because you don't want that stuff on your hands. But they also, some of them said something about dust masks, so better safe than sorry. But you'll need some throwaway bowls or something to mix. I would recommend something with a round bottom and not a square bottom, because it's kind of hard to get it all stirred in, because as per the directions on this stuff, it was, I think it said like 3 minutes of stirring. So, you know, you want to make sure that you get it all mixed up really good. So, you know, once again, the square bottom wasn't that great of an idea. These were both our mixing pots, because we ended up, we had to make a couple mixtures, because what we ended up mixing at first wasn't, I think it only covered like 2.5 or something. So other things to keep in mind, I'm trying to think here. Really, I mean, just go as per the directions. One of the things I had mentioned about with the bubbles, what I found out, focus please. What I found out about the bubbles is with this particular epoxy, and I'm not sure if it's the same with all, but the directions were saying that if you end up with little bitty bubbles, that it's a product of mixing the epoxy in and hardener while it's too cold. So it actually said in, I mean, you can see it doesn't even want to focus on the coaster. It focuses on the reflection. This thing is so wild. But what was I saying? There we go. So it actually said to like run these under warm water, hot water, so that I don't know, I think it said something about 70 to 85 degrees is the ideal working temperature. So another thing that I watched, that I saw in these videos, was to use a hair dryer. You know, once you got your mix and I don't know how well it didn't work so well while it was in the liquid form. And that was kind of late last night. So I don't know if, you know, as it gets a little harder and kind of sticky, if that would have been the best time to use the hair dryer, basically to get heat to make those bubbles rise to the surface. In a bunch of the videos that I've watched on YouTube about that, that's what they do. Some of them just use a straw and just use their breath blowing on it, and it seems to work. But I think that might just be dependent on the type of on the brand of epoxy that you're using. So once again, I'll show this bad boy off. I know this has been a little long-winded. Hopefully you guys have stayed tuned for the whole thing. And as you can see, we got 5 more of these coming out. So, and I'll post more pictures and whatnot as I get further along with it, and smoothing out those rough edges and whatnot. And of course, once we get the tan kind of sand colored felt paper that we're going to put on these. So I hope you enjoyed, and hope that answered your questions. If you have any more, just comment, and I'll do what I can to answer them. All right, have a good evening.